Hey everybody, welcome back. Kate Lumpkin here, founder of Bloom Ayurveda, and welcome to the final part in this five-part series where we have focused on the five elements of life. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that you have had some aha moments and takeaways, and hopefully you enjoyed this form of content. I know personally I'm, more of an audio visual kind of person versus just reading a really lengthy blog. So if you enjoyed this and if you've learned something along the way, if you would, just shoot me a message, shoot me a reply to my email or a DM or leave a comment. I would love to hear how this landed for you because ultimately, what I want to do is help educate. And in a perfect world, we would know our bodies better than anybody else. But in order to do that, we really have to understand how Mother Nature is showing up in our body and how the elements work within our body. Because that is really the foundation for Ayurvedic theory. It's the foundation for holistic wellness. And this is what is going to allow us to then now be able to start to talk about Ayurveda, start to talk about individual doshas and constitutions and energetics and how you can tell if the body is warm or cold. And then eventually, to talk about symptoms. Right. And especially, obviously we're tying this back to herbalism and being able to understand how herbs can help ourselves from an energetic standpoint. And so, not to digress too much, but this is the foundation of the house. And now everything that we're going to build on top of that is building the walls and the roof and the vanities. But I just want us to be able to understand these elements and how they show up in the physical and mental, emotional body. So hopefully you've learned something along the way. But anyways, let's dive into part 5. We are going to be talking about the element of space. It is also the ether element. So those are synonymous. So you may hear me say space. You may hear me say ether element. But let's kind of envision, those movies that we've seen where the astronaut goes up into space. And let's talk about the qualities. What do they experience when they go up into space? Space is vast. You can't hold on to space. You can't grasp it. It is clear. It is infinite. There's infinite potential there. And it is all around us. And it is cold. So those are just a couple of the qualities of the ether space element. And in the physical body, how we have discussed in part 4 is space is that hollow, which then, other elements like the air element can enter. So, for example, if you think about the hollows of the body, that's the lungs, that's the mucous membranes, the urethra, the womb. There's these places where, like, literally there's space. And that the space then allows, is the container for then other elements to come into. And so, when we think about the physical body, those are really the places where space is showing up. And then also, from an auditorial standpoint, the hearing is really much dealing with space because noise has to travel through space to get into the eardrum. And so that's kind of how it's showing up in the physical body. But really, where the space and ether element is showing up is in the mental, emotional body. And this is where I think it's so beautiful, is because the space element really has to deal with us having this connection to higher power, a greater purpose, a greater calling, our aspirations, spirituality, if you're religious. It is going above and beyond our physical self into something that's greater than us. And I really think that's beautiful because, following this theme of the elements and how they show up in our lives, the space element for some is most predominant right at the end of life. And I don't know if you've ever been around someone who is dying, but even if they've been religious all of their life, it's like at the end of their life, those last couple weeks or even days, it's like all of a sudden they feel this very direct connection to God. They feel this sense of wanting to go or this sense of take me. They see that bright light. They see the pathway to go up to heaven or, wherever they're letting their soul release from their body. And even for people who have never been religious, in the last couple of days of their life, all of a sudden they feel this deep spirituality and this deep connection to God because there is that opening of this space portal. And we've also heard about people who have had near-death experiences or have died and come back down to earth. It's like they die and they come back down into their body because that element of being able to like tie back their to space and their soul into God, that channel is very open. And so, not to get too morbid, but I think that's really interesting is just maybe notice, if you've ever been around this, a family member who has passed away, just how much that element of space, of ether, is predominant in those last couple of days of life. I know when my grandmother passed away and she kept talking to me about God more than ever. Looking back on it, it was because that element was very predominant in her last couple of moments. And so, there are times in our life where we always ask ourselves, what's my purpose? Like, what am I here to do? I know for me, it's like, I'm not just here to only be a mom or be an herbalist or whatever. What's my purpose? And that is that ether element really showing up in the mental, emotional body is when we start to question and seek and open ourselves up to this higher question of why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What is my calling? And it's not always tied to a thing. It's not always tied to us doing a tangible thing. It may just be us, having a call to love deeper or to care for others more or to love ourselves more. But it's really this very subtle and non-tangible thing that we are asking ourselves about. And so, this may not be an element that we can really um, grasp as much as, the air element where we can tell there's dryness on our skin. But this is the element that shows up where we know that if we are just super bogged down, always in our mind, and we don't feel a very deep connection spiritually, or, we question where our calling is, this is an area where we can deepen that element of space and air within the body or the mind. And so this is where meditation extreme very much comes in. This is where it's not about sitting down for 30 minutes. I've noticed that for me, especially with my meditation practice, it has been about starting first with primarily working with the breath, which is mostly that air element. And then that kind of leads to, with more practice, which could be months and years, it eventually leads to this deepening of this space element, which is more of that connection of spirituality. And for me, that's very much a spirituality of being connected with a higher power of God. And, I know that word is very polarizing for some, but whatever God means to you. And yeah, so really there's not a ton to talk about in the physical body, but it really is just about that mental, emotional aspect of your greater purpose, of your intuition, of when you're able to really tap into your intuition and that is very open for you and where you're not just overriding your intuition with your mental thoughts all of the time. And so over the next couple of days, I, really want you to think about how connected you are to your intuition, how connected you are to your greater purpose, your calling, or your spirituality or religion. And if there is some room there, or if you feel pretty strong within this ether and space element. So, guys, we're done. What did you learn? What did you take away? So I want you to think about, yeah, the space and ether element, but also, all of these elements and how they show up for you. And I know within this series, we didn't talk a ton about how to balance or what we can do within our lifestyle and diet to balance ourselves out. But truly, it is first about noticing, right? In order to actually be able to balance or to bring in new habits, it's first we have to notice what we're doing. Because, like I said in the very beginning of this whole series, oftentimes I'm told to do something and then I'll do it for a couple of weeks, but then I don't understand why I'm doing it because I just don't get the why. So then it drops off. But if I know that I tend to have dry skin, I'm sure as hell going to keep up with my warm oil massage. Or if I know that those days where I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, feeling very fiery and spicy, I know that doing a really intense workout or, eating really spicy food that day isn't going to be the best for me. So we're going to talk about how to balance these qualities over the next couple of, weeks and months. And I just hope that you're enjoying this. Stay tuned for more of my newsletters. This is, I'm hoping this is the kind of content that you want to see. And please go into the herbal shop and see if there's anything that interests you that you would like to, buy and use. And if you have any questions on if that's the best remedy for you, shoot me a message. We can chat. And I hope that you enjoyed this. And thank you so much for being along for the ride. And I wish you well. And thank you so much.